Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating financial paradox: why making massive amounts of money can actually make you broker. Seriously, if you've ever wondered why hitting that dream salary suddenly feels like you're stuck on a financial treadmill you absolutely cannot step off of, well, you're in the right place. We're going to decode the psychological and structural traps that are keeping top earners living paycheck to paycheck. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The high-income illusion. So to really picture this, let's look at Maya. She's a lead tech engineer down in Austin. Between her and her husband, they're pulling in $500,000 a year. They've got the downtown glass office, the Range Rover, the kids in private school, the whole shebang, right? From the outside, the absolute picture of wealth. But last March, her car's transmission completely gave out. The bill was $4,800, and she had to put it on a credit card. Why? Because despite bringing in $500,000 a year, they had literally zero cash reserves sitting in their checking account. Nothing.
Now, you might be thinking Maya is just some wild exception. Nope. According to a 2026 Goldman Sachs report, a staggering 40% of Americans earning over $500,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. I mean, let that sink in for a second. 4 out of 10 people bringing in $500,000 annually feel like they have absolutely no financial cushion. They're making in one single month what most folks make in an entire year, yet they are deeply, constantly anxious about money.
So what's going on here? Well, it mostly boils down to this incredibly sneaky thing called lifestyle inflation. It's this mechanism where every single raise you get goes straight toward a totally justified upgrade, Granite countertops, better cars, nicer vacations. The trick is, the cost of this new, upgraded lifestyle doesn't just replace the old one, it stacks right on top of it. By the time someone hits $250,000 or $500,000 in annual income, those costs have stacked so high that their new expensive baseline just gobbles up everything. There is absolutely nothing left over to save and compound for the future.
Section 2, the major wealth traps. To figure out where all this money actually vanishes to, we've got to look at the biggest structural drains, starting with the granddaddy of them all, housing.
Let's say higher earners, let's call them David and Priya, stretch to buy a $1.2 million home. On paper, sure, they easily qualify for the loan. But with an $8,000 monthly housing cost, they instantly become what we call house poor. And here's the real kicker. They fall victim to escrow creep. It's this silent budget drain where that supposedly fixed mortgage payment just keeps creeping up because property taxes and insurance premiums are skyrocketing. It quietly eats away their remaining cash flow until they can't even fund their retirement, let alone fix a busted AC unit without taking out a high-interest loan.
Okay, the second massive pitfall, the luxury car lease. And this is driven heavily by a psychological glitch called the denomination effect. Basically, our brains treat money totally differently depending on how it's framed. Dealerships absolutely leverage this to trick a person making $250,000 a year into thinking a $750 monthly luxury lease is just, a harmless rounding error. Our minds just fail to aggregate the total. Suddenly, dropping $12,000 a year just to drive a depreciating asset feels completely normal. And here is the actual catastrophic cost of falling for that psychological trap. If you continuously lease a luxury car every 3 years, instead of just buying a perfectly reliable $300 a month used sedan, you are paying a huge invisible price. If you took the difference between those payments and invested it over 40 years, it would compound to roughly $1.5 million. That is the true price tag of your luxury lease. You're literally forfeiting $1.5 million in retirement returns just to drive something flashy until you forget you even wanted it.
Section 3. The invisible money bleeders. All right, so beyond the big, heavy anchors like houses and cars, we have to talk about the constellation of tiny, everyday charges. These are the invisible money bleeders that quietly, steadily drain high-earner bank accounts without ever setting off any financial alarms.
Just think about the sheer scale of these routine expenses. Childcare alone in high-cost states can easily top $28,000 a year for 2 kids. Then you tack on the convenience tax, maybe $6,400 a year on food delivery because, let's face it, you're too exhausted to cook after a long workday. Add $6,000 for daily coffee runs, nearly $8,000 for weekly house cleaners, plus a mountain of endless subscriptions and random Amazon boxes showing up. By themselves, none of these are crazy. But stack them all together and they form this massive recurring monthly expense that effortlessly vaporizes $60,000 to $120,000 a year. Poof, completely invisibly. Section 4. The savings rate illusion. Now, all this invisible spending sets up what is probably the single most expensive misunderstanding in high-income personal finance. It's the grand illusion that high earners, they're actually saving enough money for the future. Consider how the math completely shifts as income goes up. Maxing out a $7,500 Roth IRA contribution in 2026 feels super responsible, right? I mean, if you're making $100,000, that's a solid 7.5% savings rate. But if your income skyrockets to $500,000 and you never upgrade that saving strategy, that exact same $7,500 contribution suddenly shrinks to a measly 1.5% savings rate. The contribution stayed flat, but the income quintupled. Mathematically, that guarantees a massive shortfall in retirement because those savings are absolutely not scaling to support your newly elevated lifestyle. The crazy reality is that high earners actually have over $80,000 in tax-advantaged space available to them in 2026. This comes from totally maxing out 401k limits, using mega backdoor Roth strategies, and fully funding health savings accounts. But the tragedy here? Almost nobody actually uses them. People completely miss out on this profound wealth-building opportunities simply because of inertia and a lack of financial literacy. They log into their portal once, set a small contribution, and literally never touch it again.
Section 5. The price of status. Which brings us to the psychological root of this whole problem. Deep down, the high-income poverty trap is really about a profound cultural programming. It's about prioritizing the appearance of wealth over the cold, hard, mathematical reality of wealth.
This was highlighted brilliantly in the famous research behind The Millionaire Next Door. High earners routinely sabotage their net worth by buying what economists call positional goods. These are things like dropping $80,000 on a car instead of buying a perfectly reliable $30,000 one, bought mainly just to signal success to your peers. The utility is identical. They both get you to work safely. But buying the pricey one just to look the part, that's going to cost you about $270,000 in lost investment returns over 25 years. That, my friends, is the devastating price of status. Fortunately, the data shows a really fascinating and frankly super healthy shift. There's this rising trend of stealth wealth or quiet luxury. Essentially, more affluent consumers are prioritizing discretion over flashy, conspicuous logos. They're waking up to the fact that the person driving a paid-off 5-year-old Toyota is very often dramatically richer than the guy financing a brand new BMW. The ultimate goal of building wealth isn't to look rich to everyone else, it's to actually be rich. Real wealth whispers. It exists powerfully, totally regardless of whether anyone else can see it. Section 6. The Real Wealth Framework. Okay, so how do we actually escape this trap? How do we break free from these behavioral loops and convert a massive salary into lasting, unshakable financial independence? Let's look at a tale of two 34-year-old engineers, Daniel and Amira. They both have the exact same gross income of $250,000. Now, Daniel did exactly what society expected of him. He bought a $900,000 house, leases 2 luxury SUVs, and basically lives right up to the edge, leaving him technically underwater with a pretty tiny $50,000 net worth. Amira, on the other hand, made completely different choices. She bought a much more modest $550,000 townhouse, drives a paid-off Honda, maxes out her 401k, and today she boasts a phenomenal $240,000 net worth at the exact same age. Now, fast forward a bit and watch what happens. By age 50, despite having the exact same identical income for 16 long years, Amir's projected net worth is going to beat Daniel's by more than $2 million. Her wealth trajectory absolutely crushes his. And it's not because she earned a single penny more, but simply because she deliberately directed her capital instead of just letting an unchecked lifestyle swallow it whole. So how did Amira get this incredible advantage? She systematically followed 3 mechanical rules. First, she defined what enough meant to her by setting a strict internal lifestyle ceiling way in advance. Second, she automatically saves half of every single raise she gets, which ensures her wealth actually grows before lifestyle inflation can swoop in and absorb the new money. And third, she aggressively automates her investments. By routing that money straight into accounts before it ever even touches her checking, she totally removes the daily emotional grind. No willpower required at all. I want to leave you with this final, really provocative thought to chew on today. If you stopped getting paid tomorrow, how many months could you continue your current lifestyle before completely running out of money? True financial security is not measured by a fancy job title, the badge on the front of your car, or your income tax bracket. It is measured strictly by your months of runway. Think about how many months you really have and ask yourself, is your daily spending actually serving your ultimate freedom? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember, keep building that runway.